Welcome to the Live Life Well podcast for busy women. As a busy mum myself, I understand how hard it can be to look after ourselves. But hopefully this is a space for you to take time out, find connection, and get some simple takeaways to live life well, mind, body and soul. Let's jump in. Okay, so welcome to this episode of the Live Life Well podcast. And we have taken a little break over winter. We've been honouring that call to slow down and rest a little bit, but we are back embracing the full energy of spring and all that that's calling us to. And I couldn't think of a better guest for us to be back with today. We have the wonderful Evie Jenner, who is the Type Guide. And Evie is a certified Enneagram coach. And if you're not sure what the Enneagram is, Evie's going to be telling us all about it and how that's helped her and me and how it can help you. And I'm just so thrilled to have Evie on. I've been following you for a while. We had a chat recently, and I just absolutely love the work you do. I think it's really important and it's really, really helpful to us as women to help us understand and accept ourselves more. So Evie, do you want to just introduce yourself, say hello, and tell us a bit about what you do and why you love your work?
Oh, Jo, thank you. What a gorgeous introduction. That's amazing. Hi, I'm Evie. As Jo said, I'm a certified Enneagram coach, and I love people. And I couldn't think of a better way to work with people than using the Enneagram, which is this ancient personality typing tool, and that is my chosen modality of coaching. So I am an Enneagram coach. I work with people in all different stages of life, and primarily women, and we use the Enneagram to really dig into our why. Why do we do the things that we do, Jo? Why do we show up maybe in a pink jumper, or maybe why we want to have a podcast, or why we want to work with women and cheer them on and encourage them. And so that is, in a nutshell, the reason why I love to do this work, and why I feel so honored and privileged to do this work. It's a joy. And I'm so excited to talk about it with you a bit more this morning.
Oh, fabulous. We know you're doing the right thing when it brings you so much joy and purpose in your work. And I guess it's helping women find their why and their purpose, isn't it? And I believe when you sort of know your purpose, understand yourself, it just gives you that clarity that helps you know what to say yes to and know how to use your time and understand yourself better. So that's amazing. And I just have to say that Evie knows me so well. We've only met once online, but she knew I was going to be wearing bright lipstick today because she knows my Enneagram type. So I'm so impressed. You obviously know what you're talking about, Evie. Like, I was like, how did you know I was going to be doing that today? So thank you for that introduction, Evie. I like to ask all my guests this because I love hearing different answers. So what does living life well mean to you?
I think that's such a beautiful and powerful question. To actually live life well is sometimes perhaps quite a big undertaking, I think, especially post-COVID, where there's been such a huge shift collectively. For me, I think living life well is always going to come down to, however I'm feeling on that day, I know that I can manage it. That's when I know that I'm living life well. Not that I will be perpetually happy, not that I'm always striving for the next thing, but that I can meet myself in the present moment with whatever's going on, because, often there are things going on, and I can meet myself there and take really good care of myself. And I think, the kind of the flip side of that, or the other side of that, which I perhaps, as an Enneagram coach, it's not, the body is not really my domain, but I think moving daily really allows me to do that. And that links slightly into the Enneagram, because I am a body type, and we'll learn a bit more about that in a moment. But I think moving and not staying still and staying stagnant each day is really important as well. So I was just thinking about that this morning on my dog walk, just ahead of this conversation this morning. And I think movement is just really key. And that could look like so many different things. But that for me really helps regulate how I can show up for myself and be present for myself.
Sure. And I think dog walks are one of the best things we can do for our well-being, because like you say, movement is so important for our mental and physical well-being. But getting out with your doggy, and you've got a beautiful rescue pup, haven't you?
Yeah.
But they get you outside, don't they? They get you walking, they get you seeing the changes of nature, they get you getting some vitamin D. So we love our doggies, don't we? We're very grateful for them for getting us out and about. And it sounds like one of your keys to living well is to just, like we're talking about today, understanding yourself and knowing what you need each day to feel your best. And that takes a bit of work, doesn't it? That takes a bit of self-discovery, a bit of time to figure out what it is we do need to feel well. And I love that you sort of hold space for women to do that, to help them understand themselves better. So that leads us on really well to hear more about what the Enneagram is. So you mentioned it's an ancient personality test. Can you just tell us a bit about what that looks like? Because I'm guessing people might have heard of other kinds of personality tests. So what is it and how does it differ from other types?
Yeah, totally. A fantastic question. So I think, a lot of people have heard of Myers-Briggs or Strength Finders or DISC. There's lots of them. And what they're really good at is looking at the behavior. So in Myers-Briggs, are you an introvert? Are you an extrovert? When we're using the Enneagram, what we're looking at is why. Why is that your behavior? Why are you an introvert? Why are you an extrovert? So we're looking at what motivates the behavior rather than the behavior itself. And I think that difference is really significant, because I think often in a very fast-paced world, we don't really allow ourselves that little bit of time of self-discovery, like you just said, Jo. And I think it does take time. I think it does take a little bit more time than we're used to. We're used to sitting down and doing a Myers-Briggs quiz, which, after 20 questions can tell you, some very specific things about you. But what it can't tell you is why is that happening? And that's where the Enneagram differs, I think, in a really helpful way to come alongside, a lot of the other personality tests, personality tools. And it just gives us that depth. It's almost like seeing the other side of the coin, perhaps. What I will say just here as well is that you can take an Enneagram test, but I would really encourage you to not. And that's perhaps a little annoying, because I've just said we live in a fast-paced world, and we do. That's why doing the test is so helpful, because we don't often have the time. But what I think that does is it robs you from the Enneagram journey, because the Enneagram, when we're teaching it properly, we always want to teach it in full. So, Jo, I want to teach you about your type and how you work and why you work like that. But I also want to teach you about the other 8 types, so that you can learn how you can interact with, the people in your life. The reason we do that is because the Enneagram is all about building compassion, not just for ourselves, but for others as well. And so it allows us to move away from that kind of hyper individualism and back into community, back into collective, back into being a part of our family, our wider family, our chosen family. And I think that's really key in today.
Yeah, definitely. And I love that you mentioned it's not just about helping us understand ourselves, it's about helping us understand each other. And I love what you're saying about community, because my journey as a coach, I've realized that one-to-one work is fantastic, and it's really important for overcoming sort of blocks and mindsets and things that aren't serving us. But actually the real healing and the real growth happens in connection and community, doesn't it? So we do the work ourselves, then we go back into community where we sort of heal and grow together. So that's a really beautiful sort of picture you've painted of it. So can you tell us a little bit about the different Enneagram types, just to give us an idea of what does it look like, how many types are there different categories, that kind of thing, just to give us a bit of a sort of mental picture of what it looks like.
Yeah, totally. So the Enneagram is made up of 9 different types, and within those 9 different types, we have 3 groups of 3. And we have the heart triad or the feelings triad. We've got the head triad or the thinking triad. And then we've got the gut triad or the body triad. And so even from just hearing those, you might be able to work out where you'd be. Oh, yeah, I'm a big feeler. I would be in the feeling triad. Oh, yeah, I love to think. I'm often in my head. Maybe sometimes I overthink. I might be in the head triad, or yeah, I love to do. I'm a mover, I'm a shaker. I like to get stuff done. Perhaps I'm in the body triad. So that's a really great way and it's actually my preferred way to start with teaching the Enneagram. Which group do you belong to out of those three? And we call those the centers of intelligence in the Enneagram. And if you were to go away and look on Instagram or read a book, that's where a lot of people start, because it's such a great jumping off point to say, actually, we all have all three of these different centers in our body, our feeling center, our thinking center, and our body center. But actually, which is most dominant? Which is the loudest? Where do you lead from primarily? So I think that's a great place to start. And then if we were to go in and break the groups down, I'll jump off with type 1. Type 1 is the perfectionist. They're part of the body center. Then we've got type 2, the giver, the helper, the friend. They're part of the feelings triad. Then we've got our wonderful type 3s, who are known as the achiever, or the successful ones. And then we've got the type 4s, the romantic, or the individualist. Type 5, the investigator. Type 6, the loyalist. Type 7, the enthusiast. Type 8, the boss. And type 9, the peacemaker. And so even from just those names, that's a lot of words I just said. You might want to, skip back a few seconds and listen to them again. But even from those names, you might be able to work out, oh, yeah, that sounds a bit like me. Or, oh, that sounds a bit like my mum, my sister, my husband. Or that sounds, a bit like maybe my child. Start to put yourself into, which of those names feels maybe most true, or which feels definitely untrue. I am a type 1. My name within the Enneagram is the perfectionist. And that is something that, I've always struggled with. So it's no surprise to me that I find myself there. Similarly, I'm definitely not the investigator, the type 5. I don't do lots of investigating. So see if those names kind of spark anything, and then perhaps go away and read a little bit more about them. Because that's a really great place to start when beginning your Enneagram journey.
That's a brilliant snapshot of Enneagram. And I'll just give you a warning, if you're listening, you might get a bit obsessed with it. I definitely have done when I learned about it. So you might end up doing a deep dive, but go for it. It's a great journey. So you mentioned, Evie, like you would recommend doing a test, or I have heard if you do a test, don't just sit with that result, like keep digging into it, keep reading, keep trying to understand, because it really is a journey, isn't it? Not just a destination that you get at the end of a test. What you've sort of mentioned from just you sharing the different types that people might start to pick up on what type they might be, but how would you recommend people do discover their type? Obviously they can work with you, which is a great idea, and you can help them on that journey. But if they're just starting off and they're curious, how would they start to sort of understand the types and figure out which one they might be?
Yeah. Again, a great question. And I think it is just that. It is a journey. And like we were just saying, it is that solitary work that can't be done alone. The Enneagram doesn't really exist with just us. It exists in community. And so I would recommend talking to friends about it, and perhaps bringing them in and maybe making a little book club out of it. Now that maybe sounds very idealized. Who the heck has time for a book club? But I do think there are some really fantastic kind of entry level books to the Enneagram. There are some very intense, deep, profound, wonderful Enneagram work. And I would maybe stay away from that at the beginning, because it could be a little overwhelming, because it is a little bit like learning a new language. I've just used lots of words there that maybe it's the first time you've heard of the centers of intelligence or the type 8. So I think there are some good entry level books, which, Jo, I will send you. Maybe you could pop them in the show notes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, great. And then I think, have the conversation with your spouse, your partner, your best friend, your mum. Have that conversation, bring other people in, and really make something out of it. Because I think that's where the joy of it is. This self-discovery, this learning about self is always heightened when people can go, oh yeah, I always see you like that. Yeah, that is true about you. Yes, that is who you are. To kind of have that external validation or confirmation, I think is really powerful and really, really supportive kind of to the process.
Yeah, absolutely. It's lovely bringing other people alongside you without trying to sort of guess other people are. I'm quite bad for that, but we try and stay away from that, don't we? But it's hard not to sometimes.
Sure.
Have you come across any resistance? I know when I realised that I was a type 3, which is the achiever, which I totally am. I accept that now with a wing of the 2 helper, just to balance me out a bit. I was quite upset. I was like, they don't sound like a very nice person. Like, I totally embrace it now. I kind of love those parts of myself, but I found it quite difficult at first. It's a bit like when I got my colours done and I realised I was a spring. I was like, I don't love those colours. I was a bit like that thing. I'm like, I don't know if this fits me. I don't know if I like that. Did you experience that, or have you experienced that with helping people with theirs?
Yeah. It's a huge part of the journey. And that's why I would say, let's bring other people along, other people that you love and can support you, because it can be really almost affronting. We teach the Enneagram from what we get wrong. So I could teach all 9 types. Now I could teach through them. And if I only teach the positives, we will get to the end and you won't know who you are. You go, well, yeah, I'm a bit like that. And I guess I can be a bit like that and a bit like this. But when you hear the stuff that, you get wrong, when I hear about, the type 1 being, demanding and extremely high standards, not just for self, but for others. I flush red. It's a bit embarrassing. It brings that part of me to the surface. And what we want to do in that place is not shame or there's nothing wrong with that part of you. It's just how we work and how we operate. Now, sometimes how that comes out could be a little bit sideways. We might need to take some extra care and attention as to what we might be communicating to ourselves. Why are those standards so high, Evie? Or why am I being so demanding? Where is that coming from? What need have I not met within myself? And how can I offer that to me daily? And so it is definitely, it can be a little bit stingy. I cried for about 3 weeks after I landed on my main type, because now I have to come to terms with all this stuff. And perhaps you might be listening to this and thinking, well, why would I do it? Why would I put myself through that? Because the joy and the freedom that is waiting for you on the other side of what I would call, and maybe Joe, you would agree, I'm not sure, I'd love to hear your thoughts, but almost like a breakthrough moment of, this is me, and this is what I get wrong, and this is what I get right. And I want to use that information about myself to live really well, to show up to life and really live well. And I think the Enneagram provides a real almost map in how to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I understand what you're saying. I can relate to it. Sort of, we know those parts of ourselves about us that we might not like as much. Like, they're there, we know they're there, but the Enneagram sort of takes them out into the light, allows you to look at them and see the strengths in them as well. Like, things that society or that even you might judge as negative can have a real flip side and have real strengths to them. And then you can, like you say, get to the other side where you can discover that sort of grace and empathy for yourself and acceptance, which is what we're aiming for and what we're talking about. So I love that. And we will get on to how this can help all of our well-being. We've started to touch on it already, but can you just tell us a bit of, from a personal side, how this journey has helped you and how that sort of complements your well-being?
Yeah, totally. So, I discovered the Enneagram about 7 years ago, and actually at the time I was really unwell. So in my late teens and early 20s, I was super unwell. I had a number of chronic illnesses that at times left me bedbound, and what that meant was that life really wasn't on the trajectory that I had dreamed and believed and hoped and worked for. And that is really hard, whoever you are, whatever Enneagram type you are. And for me, how that came out was, things are not going perfectly well. I'm a failure. When I came across the Enneagram and began to dive into it and understood that, as the type 1, I'm always looking for perfection in everything. And actually, perfection doesn't exist. And so in and of myself, I'm almost an oxymoron, looking for this, this silver lining that, I can never create that perfect moment. That created such a huge shift in me whilst I was walking through what was, the hardest time of my life. It gave me the strength and the resilience to really, look at my life, see my life, and know that it was okay. It was okay that things weren't going perfectly. It was okay that I was really struggling. It was okay that I was really unwell. And that really gave me the language and the space to be able to start to move forward. And I would, perhaps that's a bit of a dramatic story, but I would say that we've kind of all had those rock bottom moments where life feels completely out of control, where it feels like you just can't see the next step forward. And for me, the Enneagram really provided a space to take a very small next step of, grace and of hope. It really provided that for me.
Oh, grace and hope. I love that. And we need more of those things. And I guess it helps you understand how you react and respond in situations. Our personality kind of dictates that, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. So if we can understand that better, it helps us prepare for when challenges do come up, doesn't it? It helps us understand how we're going to respond or how we can choose to respond. So that's really powerful to think about that side of it. Because things will happen, things will come up, and it can help us move forward, which is amazing. So just thinking then, it's wonderful to hear how it's helped you on your journey, and I'm so glad you've come through the other side of that and you're thriving now, doing this incredible business that you've got and supporting people to change their lives. But how do you see it out working in your work and helping your clients, and maybe how then can it help us with our well-being? Mm-hmm. I'm just thinking, like you're talking earlier about even how it can come into things like movement, how we like to move, how we like to eat, how we like to show up, how we like to take care of ourselves. I know as an achiever, type 3, I like to get recognition and praise. That's part of me that I've had to learn to accept. Didn't really like that at first. I was like, that's not nice, but I'm okay with it now. So I almost embrace that. And if I'm doing like a healthy eating plan, I will share it on Instagram because I like getting the likes and I like getting that accountability from people. So even thinking about that for me, how I can use it in my wellbeing journey to keep me accountable, keep me motivated, doing things with people, motivating other people, that kind of thing. So that's just an example that I thought of as we're chatting. But how have you seen it help your clients with their wellbeing?
Yeah, totally. And Jo, you just described it so perfectly there, that the Enneagram really shows us that our greatest weakness is absolutely, our greatest strength. They are, they're absolutely intrinsically linked. And actually, it's how we can use that, like you just said. And so, I mean, it's been just an absolute privilege to watch, lots of people walk through so many different things. I've seen huge job changes, this belief that, hey, I have this dream and I want to go ahead and do it, but maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I can't pull that off. Maybe it's not going to happen for me. This was a type 1 I was working with. Maybe I won't be perfect at it. To going for it and stepping into it, and now really, 18 months into their new job role, absolutely loving it, and actually, are growing at a huge, almost expedited rate. How exciting. And then, I mean, kind of similarly on, work and job, which I think is a huge part of living well, because it's kind of what we spend the majority of our time doing. It's important that we, don't hate it. A type 4 who, just, had dreamt about making these changes at work and had never put themselves forward to kind of lead anything, had never put themselves forward to really, hold that and carry this dream in the work that they do. And their work is it's very, very powerful end of life care. And, they now, after sharing, hey, I've got these ideas. Yeah, we'd love you to come and lead that. Can you do that? Is the response. And yes, I can do that. And so I think watching, type 1 and type 4, two very different types, step into this belief and knowledge of, yes, I can, and I can do it in my way, and my way is going to be different from other people's, we can see that whilst the stimulus might be the same, hey, I've got this dream to do this differently at work, the how we get there is going to be slightly different because our behavior, our personality is slightly different. And so I think that's a good example as well to think about. This is why it's so helpful to do this work in community, because it's not about me showing up just like you, Jo. It's about me being inspired that you're showing up authentically. And so I can show up authentically. And so whilst maybe I wouldn't post about my healthy eating routine, what I might do is, that might free me into spending a bit more time planning it and executing my healthy plan. Oh, Jo's doing it, so can I. I'm going to do it in my own way. Doesn't mean I've got to post about it on Instagram. I could do if I wanted to, but what it probably means is that I'm going to allow myself to plan a bit more, because that's what I love to do as a type 1. That's how I love to spend my energy. Yes. And so those, I've maybe sandwiched 2 different parts of the Enneagram there together, but I think there's just so many different ways. And, a big part of my work is using it with the menstrual cycle. And, for those of us that do menstruate, the messaging is, you will feel like this, so do this. And I think, gosh, what a colossal waste of everybody's time. Jo, I would imagine that your period and my period, your cycle and my cycle, are very different, because we're different humans, and how we approach that is going to be very different. And so again, that kind of, freedom to show up in a way that suits, each of us, and not having to kind of conform, is a really freeing space to be in, I think. I think I've answered not exactly your question there.
I love your answer. You could just keep going. It's fine. I love all the things you have to say. And I really love the work you do around the menstrual cycle. And so we definitely need to have you back on, because that's a whole other episode in itself, for sure. But that is also very important work. That's also, you really inspired me with that. And I use part of what you've shared with my coaching clients now, just to help them understand their cycles. It's so important. And we need different things at different parts of our cycle, don't we? As we need different things as different people and personalities. So all so fascinating. Love it all. So it sounds like sort of 2 of the key things you're saying about how it can support us in our well-being are to really sort of narrow down our purpose. And I think that is really powerful. I use that in my coaching too, because I think if you're clear about your purpose, you're clear about your values, it just gives you a lot of clarity. And like you said, if you're trying to be like someone else or do something that doesn't bring you joy, you're going to shrink as a person, aren't you? You're not going to feel fulfilled. You're not going to be living life to the full. But if you can understand yourself better and understand how you're made and what you're made for, then it's going to be so much more joy, which is a massive part of our mental and spiritual well-being, isn't it? And they all kind of tie into each other. That sort of acceptance as well then, which is also so important, because if we don't accept ourselves, we can't really live well, because we're also going to be really hard on ourselves. We're going to be beating ourselves up, and that's never positive motivation for change and progress, is it? To get rid of that shame that you're talking about. And that is a journey, isn't it? Like, that can be hard, especially as women. We can carry around a lot of shame and disappointment, but if we can get clearer about what we're here for, what we're put on earth for, and who we are, that gives you so much freedom. I think freedom's the word I was looking for, doesn't it? And clarity to move forward. So that's all wonderful. So I highly recommend digging into it and having a chat with you, Evie. So on that point, how can people stay in touch with you and find out more about your work? I know you run loads of amazing events in Sheffield, but also find out about your coaching. Where can we find you and carry on this conversation?
Yeah, totally. So I'm on Instagram at The Type Guide, or you can find me on my website at www.thetypeguide.co.uk. And there's lots of different ways. As you said, there's often events going on, or I do offer one-to-one coaching typing sessions as well. And reach out to me on Instagram, just have a chat and let me know what you thought of this conversation. I'm sure me and Jo would absolutely love to hear what you're thinking. So always around for a chat and would love to connect.
Yep, absolutely. We'd love to hear your feedback, and we'll put all the links in the show notes to Evie's website and her Instagram, and also some of the books that you'd recommend as well, which I think would be really helpful. And I'd really recommend following Evie on Instagram, because her feed is just absolutely beautiful, even just for inspiration. It looks gorgeous. You can see the strength of your type 1 personality coming through in your gorgeous branding and everything that you do. So I know that you'll do everything well, and you'll really help people as well. So thank you for that, Evie. And just to end on a bit of a fun note, I'd love to know, if it was your last meal on earth, what would you choose to have?
Yeah, this question is fantastic. I love it. I had planned out a whole day of eating, not just a last meal. But
why not? Go for it.
Well, yeah, I love food.
We do too.
I think if I had to pick, I'd probably pick a sushi Japanese feast. Would be my top choice. And what I mean by that is I'd like one of everything.
Sure.
I just love Japanese food, and I love raw fish, and I love sushi. So that's what I would go for.
Oh, perfect. And yeah, Japanese food is the best. It's my favorite too. So good choice. Good choice.
Thanks. Thank you.
Evie, it's been so wonderful to chat. I'm really delighted we managed to have this conversation, and I know it's going to spark so much interest from people, and hopefully if you listen, it'll just set you off on that journey of self-discovery and acceptance. But please do stay in touch and let us know what you think.